Hello, this is Kevin, and today we're taking a look at Sage Estimating Release 25 was just released this week, and just going to take a look at some of the new functions that have been included with a few videos here. And the first one I want to take a look at is the relationship between eTakeoff and the Sage Estimating. So eTakeoff, basically you can map items to your estimating database and so forth. So as you take off items, it could automatically know where to transfer those over to estimating, but it took time to set some of those links up and so forth. So one of the things that they've done that's kind of interesting is they've actually went back and actually added another method of how to get things from eTakeoff over to your Sage Estimate. And that's what I want to kind of focus on here. If I go ahead and open up eTakeoff, and let's say I've got a project here. I've done no measurements, so in my measurement summary, I see that I've got nothing taken off yet. So I just want to take off two basic slabs, so for this example. So I'm going to say that I want to do an area. I'm not going to say the trace at the moment, and I'm going to just say that slab 1 is going to be a 4 inches. I do have my Snap AI turned on. So basically, if I highlight this pool here, it'll basically take off the whole entire area for me because that perimeter goes around as the snap tries to follow that perimeter. So I'm just going to say there. So in this case here, I've got my square footage of my first slab. I'm going to go back then and say that I have a second slab here then. And maybe I'm going to say this is slab 2. And let's say it's going to be a 6-inch slab. And let's say that I want to change the color a little bit. Okay. And apparently I picked up a color that was very close there. I'm going to go a little bit different just so they stand out a little bit more. Okay, so that way I've got two different slabs here. So I've got 500 some square foot of one and 56 square foot of another one. So I've went through dimension, I've done some takeoff and so forth, and now I'm ready to tie this to my estimating. So I'm going to go ahead and bring estimating up. And there again, I'm not going to do any pre-built items or anything like that. I'm going to go through like worst case scenario where maybe I just don't have a database set up yet or any mappings or anything of that nature. So in my case, I'm just going to do a couple one-time items. So I am going to pick at least a phase to get me started, and I'm just going to throw it all under some heading here. And let's just say that I'm going to have some sort of a and let's say I don't know a quantity yet, and I'm taking mine off per square foot at the moment, and I might have some labor material, so I'm going to leave it at that at the moment. And I'm going to take that item and I'm going to just copy and paste it, and then I'm going to go through and say that I've got slab forms. And because I had two different slabs, I'm going to go ahead and also take both of those and copy those. So theoretically, that way I'm going to have one for my 4-inch slab and one for my 6-inch slab that I took off. So once I have something in my estimate here, if I want to bring a quantity over from dimension, there's a couple different ways of doing it. So when I right click, I have get quantity from dimension, and I also have a get quantity from dimension and select variable. So the main difference when I think about this is if I think about what I drew is I drew a trace that was an area. So if I said get quantity from dimension, it's going to try to bring the area initially. But if I wanted to know the slab form, maybe I want the perimeter instead of the area. So when I do a trace in dimension, it can have multiple like counts and perimeters and square footage and things like that. It might have multiple numbers associated with it. Then I could say select variable where it'll let me get into more detail. So I'm going to just start with the first one of just getting a quantity. I'm going to go through and find one of my slabs, and that 500 and some square foot I had, I'm just going to right click on that trace, and I'm going to say return that quantity estimating, and it basically dropped that quantity right back for me. So I want to do the same thing for that other slab. So maybe I'm going to come down here, I'm going to right click, I'm going to say get dimension quantity. I'm going to go ahead and right click on my other slab and return that quantity estimating, and There I've got two quantities that have come over without me having to retype numbers and so forth. Now for my slab forms, I'm going to do the opposite choice. So I'm going to go through for my slab forms there, and I'm going to go through and right click, and I'm going to say dimension with select variable. So I'm going to start with my slab again and say I want to return that quantity. And now you notice a little pop-up box came up to try to clarify what I'm bringing over. So right now it's showing me my trace that I've got and so forth. It's asking about an item description that we're going to take a look at in a moment here. And then it wants to know, here's my different variables that I could actually bring back for my different values. So in this case here, maybe my edge forms are going to be more of a perimeter number. And I think I took it off per square foot, so I'm going to say yes, I want it anyway, because that's really should have been lino foot. And maybe I'm going to say that should have probably been lino foot 2. And you'll notice that I basically brought back those quantities. So I'm going to say select variable here. I'm going to go ahead and tell it I want to return the quantity here. I want to return the perimeter. So as we go through there, my quantities are actually tied together. And if I were to come back and actually right click on one of these, if you notice they've got a little diamond in the corner here, that lets me know that this is actually tied to something in dimension. If I right click and said drill down to eTakeoff dimension, if you notice this dimension just got the focal point on it, versus if I come back to here and said, okay, let's say, where did this value come from a project? It's going to go back and let's do that again. So I go back here and say I want to drill down. It'll basically bring my focal point to the other slab. So very powerful that it could go through and tell me where this came from in my dimensions. I'm going to do another twist. So the other thing that it's got is when I went through and I told it to get dimension with variable, there was another setting in there that I left alone. So I'm going to go back and look at that again. So I'm going to say I want to select a value for this one again. I'm going to come back up here and say that's quantity I want to return. I'm still going to return just the area, but what I'm going to change this time is I'm going to have it change my description. Keep the current item description, append my trace description and dimension to my Sage estimating item, or replace my Sage estimating item with my trace description from eTakeoff. So in this case here, I'm going to append them together. Now you'll notice that it says slab concrete, and it's got my trace name from dimension to even help me know where that came from. So I'm going to go back and do the same thing here, because in my mind, I think that just is a lot better audit way of seeing it. And this was already defaulting a pin. So I'm going to leave that one the same. I'm going to say that's going to be the perimeter. And I'm going to come on down to here. And we're going to do the same thing for that one. And we're going to return our quantity. That's going to be our area. Pin's already on. I'm going to come down to here. I'm going to say, get my variable again. Send that one back to my estimating. This one I want to be the perimeter. It's still got my pinned on. And now I could see slab 1, slab 2. So it's actually kind of visual. So instead of having to go back and drill down, I could kind of see that trace right in my estimating. So very cool way of being able to go see in my estimate kind of where this information came from. So that way I could see that trace of what I've got in dimension and so forth. The next thing I want to take a look at then that's this allows, it's pretty cool, is when I look at my drawing. I could come back and say that there's more takeoff somewhere else, or maybe one of these dimensions change or something of that nature. So in this case here, let's go through and say, I'm going to move a point here, and I'm just going to stretch a couple of these out a little bit farther. Matter of fact, I'm going to turn snap off when I do that. And I'm just going to stretch a couple of these out a little bit. So that way you'll notice that basically my square footage is going to get increased. And then on this other one, maybe I'm going to come back to it and say I want a disconnected point, because maybe there's more additional slab one that I found somewhere else on this project. So this one kind of went from, I think it was about 50 some foot up to 99. And if I say that I want a disconnected point of this first one, I'm just going to come down here to the middle of nowhere and basically just add, like there's another slab here, let's say. So that's went from 500 some up to 600. So I've since then, after I pushed these quantities over to my estimate, they've changed. I went back and found more, maybe I deleted one, whatever the case is. If I go back and look at my estimate, they're still the same quantity. Under my takeoff tab, if I were to look at update from dimension, there, all those quantities just changed already. This is showing me the takeoff order, the phase, the item code, the description of the project and so forth that it's associated with, the dimension, trace name and so forth, whether it was an area or perimeter, the old value, new value. So this is showing me everything in that estimate that has changed with a matter of that one click. So it's also letting me know that it changed 4 items in this. This is also where maybe I want to keep an audit trail of this. So if I just say close, it's already changed the estimate and I'm done. If I wanted to keep this, I could actually say save. And this is probably where I'd maybe create a folder. So maybe I had a folder for this project, or maybe I put something about a date in here, whatever the case is. And basically what that would do is it would just allow you to pull up that same, and I don't know that I paid attention to where I put that. Let's go hit save again and see where that defaults. So there's the one I just did. So I'm going to open it up from here. So basically it just shows kind of the same information, showing old quantity, new quantity, and things of that nature of what it was. So that way I can have some sort of an audit trail of when things change, what changes were made, and things of that nature. So pretty cool little feature. So that way it's a lot less work on having to map items out and things like that. So if you're doing a lot of repetitive things, I think mapping them out ahead of time makes a lot of sense. But for a lot of people that, darn, here's a widget that I have and I didn't set any relationship up and things like that, this is really cool because that way nothing has to be set up ahead of time. I created those traces on the fly. I created these one-time items on the fly. And I'm basically able just to map out just for this one job, for this one thing of linking those together. Bang, I've got it. So take a look at it. Give me some comments on what you think, and thanks for watching.